Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at the laws of candy by various associated names with it: Philip Massinger, John Ford and John Fletcher. The attributions as to who wrote what and whether their hand are actually in the text is confused. But those are the three names we've got in there. It's a play from the early 1620s, date range 1619 to 1623, and that's about all I know about this play, really. But we're going to find out how it functions as we go into it today with a wonderful room of readers who include reading today. Decius is...
Hi, I'm Eric. I'm here.
Reading Arcanes and Philander is...
Oh, Irene, in Greece.
Reading Gaspero and Erota is...
Lois in London.
Reading Antinous and Servant is...
Hello, Francis in Amsterdam.
Well, it's actually Antinous. Never mind. Reading Messenger and Gonzalo is...
Rachel in Canada.
Reading Cassilanes is...
Mark in the Midwest United States.
Reading Prophycio and Annophel is... Reading my Melitus, Soldiers, Fernando and Attendants is...
Connor Brown here in London.
And reading Possenne and Mochingo is...
Lynn in the Northwestern United States.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions, and I'll leap in if necessary in the event that anything goes horribly, horribly wrong, with either doubling or if people have to nip in and out. So without further ado, we don't have a surviving prologue, as far as I can see, so we start straight into the action with Act 1, Scene 1, enter Gaspero and Melitus.
Sir, you're the very friend I wish to meet with. I have a large discourse, invites your ear to be my auditor.
Oh, and what concerns it?
The sadly thriving progress of the loves between my lord, the prince, and the great lady, whose insolence and never yet matched pride can by no character be well expressed, but in her only name, the proud Erota.
Alas, Melitus, I should guess the best success your prince could find from her to be as harsh as the event doth prove. But now 'tis not a time to pity passionate griefs, when a whole kingdom in a manner lies upon its deathbed bleeding.
Who can tell whether or no these plagues at once hang over this unhappy land for her sake, that is a monster in it?
Here's the misery of having a child, our prince. Else, I presume, the bold Venetians had not dared to attempt so bloody an invasion.
Yet I wonder why Master Secretary, still the Senate, so almost superstitiously adores the Gonzalo, the Venetian lord, considering the outrage of his countrymen.
The Senate is wise and therein just. For this Gonzalo, upon a massacre performed at sea by the Admiral of Venice on a merchant of Candy, when the cause was to be heard before the Senate there, in open court professed that the cruelty the Admiral had showed deserved not only fine, but death. For Candy then and Venice were at peace. Since when, upon a motion in the Senate for conquest of our land, 'tis known for certain that only this Gonzalo dared to oppose it. His reason was because it too much savored of lawless and unjust ambition. The wars were scarce begun, but he, in fear of quarrels gainst his life, fled from his country and hither came, where, to confirm his truth, I know, Melitus, he out of his own store hath moneyed Cassilanes, the general.
What? Without other pledges than Cassilanes? Bare promise of payment?
No, it may be he has some petty lordship to retire to, but thus he hath done. Now, 'tis fit, Melitus, the Senate should be thankful. Otherwise, they should annihilate one of those laws for which this kingdom is throughout the world, unfollowed and admired.
What laws are those, sir? Let me so much importune you.
Oh, you shall, and they be worth your knowledge. Briefly thus, whoe'er he be that can detect apparently and another of ingratitude for any received benefit, the plaintiff may require the offender's life, unless he please freely and willingly to grant remission.
By which strict law the Senate is in danger, should they neglect Gonzalo?
Right. The law permits a like equality to aliens as to a homebred patriot.
Pray, sir, the other.
No, Melitus. The elder Cretans flourished many years in war, in peace unparalleled, and they, to spur heroic spirits on to virtue, enacted that what man soe'er he were, did noblest in the field against his enemy, so by the general voice approved and known, might at his home return make his demand for satisfaction and reward.
They are both famous laws indeed.
Enter a messenger.
Master Secretary, the Senate is about to sit and crave your presence.
What? So suddenly?
Messenger
These-
presents some letters.
These letters will show the causes why.
Heaven, thou art great and worthy to be thanked.
Your countenance, sir, doth promise some good tidings.
Oh, the best and happiest for this land that e'er was told. All the Venetian forces are defeated.
How, sir?
And what doth add some delight more, there is among the soldiers a contention who shall be the triumpher, and it stands doubtful between a father and his son, old Cassilanes and young Antinous.
Why may not both demand it?
The law denies it. But where the soldiers do not all consent, the parties in contention are referred to plead before the Senate, and from them, upon an open audience, to be judged the chief, and then to make demands.
You ravish me with wonder and delight.
As we walk, I shall more fully inform you.
And exit. So, Act 1, Scene 1, exposition. Hi, would you like to tell me what's going on in the socio-political world of this particular regional area? Yes, I would. Let me give you a short disputation about the nature of our common law. So...
Yeah, which you think you got to know. Yes.
Yeah, it's like it's the kind of thing where in a modern television drama it says, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but it's that kind of problem of how do you do exposition at the beginning of an episode. It's not very subtle, but it sort of bounces along quite inoffensively. I know sort of what's going on. I felt it was quite clear. Sometimes people do exposition at the beginning of play and I've got no idea what they're talking about, but I felt that wasn't bad. Thoughts, Lynn?
It also, I think, tells you something about genre. I mean, it seems to be about war and politics and love and things that plays are about, but these laws are really weird. Like if someone does you a favor, you owe them by law, and only one guy can be the hero of the war, and if there's dispute about it, the Senate solves that dispute. Those sound like fairy tale laws, for lack of a better term. So I mean, I think if you've seen enough plays and if you know enough about these kinds of genres, that we are in a sort of fantasy world. That this is romance, basically. That this is not real politics. This is not the real world. That these laws like this only turn up in these sort of romance fictions, I think.
Lois.
Yeah, it's not so much romance. It's actually a genre of disputation. I forget what the technical term for this is, but there's a book by Eugene Waith which talks about this, I think. Controversiae, that's it. And I think they go back to Seneca, who devised cases like this. Suppose this happens and then this happens. and then what are we supposed to do about it? And usually it ends up in a court of law or in some scene where everybody argues. So this is the first example, I think, that we've read of that type of play, but there are quite a few of them. I think this Waif play talks about it in Beaumont and Fletcher, but I think there are other people who read the same thing. I think Massinger does it too, because it's clearly set up here, and a father and son controversy as well. The other thing that strikes me about it is what lousy blank verse this is. I mean, this when you get something like, I should guess the best success your prince could find from her to be as harsh as the offent doth prove, but not. I mean, it's really somebody with he knows how many syllables there are in a blank verse line, but it's terrible writing. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, it conveys what it's supposed to convey.
Yes, and there's also all sorts of question about does dialogue have to be good verse as long as it moves forward? I mean, it was clear. I mean, that was what I thought was quite actually impressive in that sense, even though it is all plot and it is all, there's no real character work going on here. These are just there's a hint of it, but these are people just telling us what's going on, and that's useful stuff. Okay, let's power on and see how some of the people we've been talking about actually are in real life. Act 1, Scene 2, enter Cassilanes, Arcanes, Antinous, and Decius.
Admit no soldier near us till the Senate have took their places.
You're obeyed, my lord.
Decius, fall off.
I shall.
Give leave, Arcanes.
Exit Arcanes.
Young man, come nearer to me. Who am I?
It were a sin against the piety of filial duty if I should forget the debt I owe my father on my knee. Your pleasure?
What, so low? Canst thou find joints, yet be an elephant? Antinous, rise. Thou wilt belie opinion, and rebate the ambition of thy gallantry, that they whose confidence thou hast bewitched should see their little god of war kneel to his father, though in my hand I did grasp thunder.
Sir, for proof that I acknowledge you the author of giving me my birth, I have discharged a part of my obedience. But if now you should, as cruel fathers do, proclaim your right, and tyrant-like usurp the glory of my peculiar honours, not derived from successory, but purchased with my blood, then I must stand first champion for myself, against all interposers.
Boldly urged, and proudly I could love thee, did not anger consult with just disdain, in open language to call thee most ungrateful. Say freely, wilt thou resign the flatteries whereon the reeling pillars of a popular breath have raised thy giant-like conceit to add a suffrage to thy father's merit? Speak.
Sir, hear me. Were there not a chronicle well penned by all their tongues, who can report what they have seen you do? Or had you not, best in your own performance, writ yourself, and been your own text, I would undertake alone, without the help of art or character, but only to recount your deeds in arms, and should you ever then be famed a precedent of living victory. But as you are great, and well worthy to be styled great, it would betray a poverty of spirit in me to obstruct my fortunes or descent if I should coward-like surrender up the interest which the inheritance of your virtue and mine own thrifty fate can claim in honour. My lord, of all the mass of fame which any that wears a sword and hath but seen me fight gives me, I will not share, nor yield one jot, one tittle.
Not to me.
You are my father, yet not to you.
Ambitious boy, how darest thou to tell me that thou wilt contend?
Had I been slothful, and not followed you in all the straits of death, you might have justly then reputed me a bastard. 'Tis a cruelty more than to murder innocence, to take the life of my yet infant honour from me.
Antinous, look upon this badge of age, thy father's grey-haired beard, full 50 years, and more than half of this ere thou wert born. I've been known a soldier, in which time I've found no difference twixt war and peace, for war was peace to me, and peace was war. Antinous, mark me well, there hath not lived these 50 years a man whom Crete preferred before thy father. Let me boldly boast, thy father, both for discipline and action, hath so long been the first of all his nation. Now, canst thou think it honest, charitable, nay, humane, being so young, my son, my child, begot, bred, taught by me, thy father, for one day's service, and that on thy first, to rob me of a glory which I fought for 100 years?
My case observes both equity and precedence. For, sir, that very day whereon you got your fame, you took it from some other, who was then chief in repute, as you are now, and has been perhaps as many years deserving that which you gained in a day, as I have mine.
But he was not my father then, Antinous. Thou leavest out that.
Sir, had he been your father, had he been then immortal, for a father heightens his reputation where his son inherits it, as when you give us life, your life is not diminished, but renewed in us when you are dead, and we are still your living images.
So be thou cursed in thy posterity, as I in thee, dishonorable boy. Shall that sun, which not a year yet since beheld me mounted upon a fiery steed, waving my sword and teaching this young man to manage arms, that was a raw, fresh novice in the feats of chivalry, shall that same sun be witness against this brat of his ingratitude, who, to eclipse the light of my renown, can no way hope to get a noble name but by the treading on his father's greatness? Thou wilt not yield.
Enter Arcanes.
My life, but not the prize my sword hath purchased.
The Senate, my lord, are here at hand, and all the soldiers begin to throng about them.
Now, Arcanes, the
What, sir?
trifles will affront us, that fine fighting stripling.
Let him have the shame on't. Please, you withdraw on this side.
My great heart was never quailed before.
Decius, you're still
My
in the
lord,
room.
be confident. Yeah, what was I doing? My lord, be confident. Let not your father daunt you.
Decius, whither must I withdraw?
On this side. See, the soldiers attend your pleasure. Courage, sir, the Senate.
Way for the Senate!
And indeed, enter the Senate. Enter Prophycio, Possenne, 3 senators, Gonzalo, Gaspero, soldiers.
My good lords, I know not what tax of arrogance I may incur, should I presume, though courted by your favors, to take a place amongst you. I had rather give proof of my unfeigned humility by force, though mean, yet more becoming place, than run the hazard of a doubtful censure.
My lord, your wisdom is both known and tried. We cannot rank you in a nobler friendship than your great service to the state deserves.
Well, please you, sir.
Enter Fernando with soldiers.
What's here, my lord Prophycio? It must not be.
My lord, you are too modest.
It is no season to be troublesome else, but I have done. Your lordships are observed.
Is the demandant ready? No?
I don't think the demandant is ready. Arcanes?
He is ready.
Produce him then.
Before the sacred presence, I, by general consent, am made the soldier's voice, and to your gracious wisdoms present as chief in arms my country's champion, Castilanes.
Most reverend lords, you hear the lesser number of those who have been guardians to this country approve this champion. I, in all their names who fought for Candy, here present before you the mightiest man in arms, Antinous. Speak, fellow soldiers.
Antinous.
Antinous.
Stand by all, save the 2 competitors.
My lords, how much your country owes you both, the due reward of your desert full glories must to posterity remain. But yet, since by our law, only one can make claim to the postponed honors which you both, it seems, have truly merited, take leave freely to plead your rights, we shall attend ye.
Wherein priority of voice is granted, Lord Cassilanes, to you, for that your rare and long experience in the course of war as well doth challenge it as the best privilege of order and civility, for that you are your brave opponent's worthy father. Say, countrymen, are you content?
Aye, aye, aye.
Aye.
Right grave, right gracious fathers, how unfit it is for me that all my lifetime have been practiced in the school of blood and slaughter to bandy words now in my life's last farewell. Your wisdoms will consider, were there pitched another and another field like that which not yet 3 days since this arm hath scattered, defeated and made nothing, then the man that had a heart to think he could but follow, for equal me he should not, through the lanes of danger and amazement, might in that only of but following me, be happy, reputed worthy to be made my rival. For 'tis not, lords, unknown to those about me, my fellow soldiers, first, with what a confidence I led them on to fight, went on still, as if I could have been a second nature, as well enheartening them by my example as by my exhortation. I gave life to quicken courage, to inflame revenge, to heighten resolution, in a word, to outdo action. It boots not to discover how that young man, who was not fledged nor skilled in martial play, was even as ignorant as childish. But I list not to disparage his non-ability. The signal given of battle when our enemies came on, directed more by fury than by warrant of policy and stratagem, I met them. I, in the forefront of the armies, met them, and as if this old weather-beaten body had been composed of cannon-proof, I stood the volleys of their shot. I myself was he that first disranked their woods of pikes. When we came to handy strokes, as often as I lent blows, so often I gave wounds, and every wound a death. I may be bold to justify a truth. This very sword of mine slew more than any twain besides, and which is not the least of all my glory, when he, this young man, hand to hand in fight, was by the general of the Venetians, and such as were his retinue, unhorsed, I stepped between, and rescued him myself. Or horse's hoofs had trampled him to dirt, and whilst he was remounting, I maintained the combat with the gallant general, till having taken breath, he thronged before me, renewed the fight, and with a fatal blow, stole both that honor from me and his life from him whom I before myself alone had more than full 3/4 killed, a man well worthy only by this hand to have died, not by a boy's weak push. I talk too much, but 'tis a fault of age. To bring home long peace, long victory, even to your capital, if to secure your kingdom, wives and children, your lives and liberties, if to renown your honors through the world, to fix your names like blazing stars admired and feared by all that have but heard of Candy or a Cretan, but to deserve the approvement of my manhood, then thus much have I done. What more? Examine the annals of my life, and then consider what I have been and am. Lords, I have said.
With reverence to the Senate, is it lawful, without your customs breach, to say a word?
Say on, my lord Gonzalo.
I have heard, and with no little wonder, such high deeds of chivalry discourse that I confess I do not think the worthies, while they lived, all 9, deserved as much applause or memory as this one. But who can do aught to gain the crown of honor from him must be somewhat more than a man. You tread a dangerous path, yet I shall hear you gladly, for believe me, thus much let me profess. In honor's cause I would not to my father nor my king, my country's father, yield. If you transcend what we have heard, I can but only say, that miracles are yet in use. I fear I have offended.
You have spoken nobly. Antonius, use your privilege.
Princely fathers, ere I begin, one suit I have to make. 'Tis just and honourable.
Speak and have it.
And have it.
That you would please the soldiers might all stand together by their general.
'Tis granted. All faulty underside. Go on, Antinous.
I shall be brief and plain. All what my father, this country's patron, hath discoursed is true. Fellows in arms, speak you? Is it true?
True.
It follows that the blaze of my performance took light from what I saw him do, and thus a city, though the flame be much more dreadful, may from a little spark be set on fire. Of all what I have done, I shall give instance only in 3 main proofs of my desert. First, I sought out, but through how many dangers, my lords judge ye, the chief, the great commander, the head of that huge body, whose proud weight our land shrunk under, him I found and fought with and slew. Fellows in arms, speak you, is it true or not?
True.
When he was fallen, the hearts of all our adversaries began to quail, till young Fernando, son to the last Duke of Venice, gathered head, and soon renewed the field, by whose example the bold Venetians, doubling strength and courage, had got the better of the day. Our men, supposing that their adversaries grew like Hydra's head, recoil and gan to fly. I followed them, and what I said they know. The sum on it is, I called them back, new ranked them, led on, they followed, shrunk not till the end. Fellows in arms, is it true or no?
True.
Lastly, to finish all, there was but one, the only great exploit, which was to take Fernando prisoner, and that hand to hand in single fight I did, myself without the help of any arm, save the arm of heaven. Speak, soldiers, is it true or no?
True.
Antonius.
Behold my prisoner, fathers.
This one man ruined our army, and hath glorified Crete in her robes of mightiness and conquest.
We need not use long circumstance of words. Antinous, thou art conqueror. The Senate, the soldiers, and thy valor have pronounced it.
Antonius. Make thy demand.
Please ye, my lords, give leave that I may part.
No, Cassilanes, the court should therein be dishonored. Do not imagine we prize your presence at so slight a rate. Demand, Antinous.
Thus, my lords, to witness how far I am from arrogance, or thinking I am more valiant, though more favoured than my most matchless father, my demand is that for a lasting memory of his name, his deeds, his real, nay, his royal worth, you set up in your capital in brass my father's statue, there to stand forever a monument and trophy of his victories. With this inscription to succeeding ages, great Cassilanes, patron of Candy's peace, perpetual triumpher.
It is granted.
What more?
What more?
No more.
How, boy?
Thou art immortal, both for thy son-like piety and beauties of an unconquered mind.
My prisoner lords, to your more sacred wisdoms I surrender. Fit you his ransom, half whereof I give for largesse to the soldiers, the other half to the erection of this monument.
Ambitious villain.
Thou art all unimitable. my lords, to work a certain peace for Candy with Venice, use Fernando like a prince. His ransom I'll disburse, whate'er it be, yet you may stay him with you, till conditions of amity shall be concluded on. Are ye content?
We are, and ever rest, both friends and debtors to your nobleness.
Soldiers, attend me in the marketplace. I'll thither send your largesse.
Antinous,
Yeah.
Antinous.
And exit the vast number of soldiers there, all crying his name.
I have a suit too, lords.
Propose it. 'Tis yours,
Propose
if
it.
fit and just.
Because yours is fit and just.
Let not my services, my being 40 years a drudge, a pack horse to you and to the state, be branded now with ignominy ne'er to be forgotten. Rear me no monument unless you mean to have me famed a coward and be stamped so.
We understand you not.
Proud boy thou dost, and tyrant-like insults upon my shame.
Sir, heaven can tell, and my integrity, what I did, was but only to enforce the Senate's gratitude. I now acknowledge it.
Observe it, fathers, how this haughty boy grows cunning in his envy of mine honors. He knows no mention can of me be made, but that it ever likewise must be told how I by him was mastered. And for surety that all succeeding times may so report it, he would have my dishonor and his triumphs engraved in brass. Hence proceeds the falsehood of his insinuating piety. Thou art no child of mine. Thee and thy blood here in the Capitol before the Senate I utterly renounce. So thrift and fate confirm me, henceforth never see my face. Be as thou art, a villain to thy father. Lords, I must crave your leaves. Come, Arcanes.
Exit Cassilanes.
Here's a strange high-born spirit.
Tis but heat of sudden present rage. I dare assure Antinous of his favour.
I not doubt it. He's both a good man and a good father. I shall attend your lordships.
Do, Antinous.
Yes, feast thy triumphs with applause and pleasures.
Lead on.
And they exit, leaving Antinous and Decius flourishing cornets as they exit.
I utterly renounce. 'Twas so, was not, my Decius?
Ish, my lord, old men are choleric.
And lastly parted with, never henceforth to see my face. Oh me, how have I lost my father? Such a father, such a one, Decius. I am miserable, beyond expression.
Why, how unbecoming this juice upon your day of fame.
Oh, mischief! I must no more come near him, that I know and am assured on it.
Say you do not.
True, but case I do not, what is Candy then to lose Antinous? Malta, I resolve to end my days in thee.
How's that?
I'll try all humble means of being reconciled, which if denied, then I may justly say, this day has proved my worse. Decius, my worst.
And they exit. Well, that's a chunky scene, going from the private to the public. When they first started talking, father and son having their I was just going, who talks to people like that? It was so formal and weird. It was oddly compelling. I was really fascinated by it, and I was sort of going along with it. It was just going, but you're talking to your dad. I mean, what is it like around the dinner table with him? I mean, it's just, it speaks to a relationship. And by God, is this a relationship writ large? I'm fascinated by what happens when it goes public and the different techniques they try to get on their side. Antinous is much cleverer in getting what he wants. He's got lots of soldiers going, hi, yay, but he's also got his enemy. His enemy says, yeah, no, this guy totally trounced us. On his side, it's a fascinating little first act. And actually, though they set in train thoughts of other plot lines, this is the only real plot line we've dealt with in this act. So it's quite focused. Lynn.
Cassilanes needs some therapy, don't he? I mean,
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one thing the Renaissance Europe inherited from the classical world, from what I understand, and I think we still have this too, is that somehow fame or honor or glory or whatever is kind of a zero-sum game. More for you is less for me. I mean, you can't share it, so Antinous has this line about, like, your first really great glorious act on the battlefield, you took that from somebody else. So it's like this limited quantity product, like there's like sort of mercantilism of honor, and that just seems weird to me, but we definitely still kind of have that more for you is less for me about social juice influence. But anyway, so that's sort of interesting to notice that. But this is just me. I really find Oedipal conflicts boring. Sorry, I'm just immediately bored by, like, father and son. It's just like, dude, you're old, get over it. The sun rises, the sun sets. It's just like,
but it is an interestingly complicated little relationship. I love the way he tries to say, well, I'm going to give all this money and build a statue to you, so you're going to win something, and it's like, nope,
yeah,
I will never talk to you again. I'm going to go away.
you're just trying to humiliate me, like,
yeah. There is sort of psychological drivers to this. It's not all just surface rhetoric and debate stuff. This is one father and son who are quite messed up.
yeah,
ways.
yeah.
The
willy waving. It's just.
And it's interesting what the court and everybody else is doing around that, and the various other figures. Okay, they're only sketches at the moment. It'll be interesting to see how filled in they get. And how that goes, because this is not unimportant to the the stability of a state like this, especially after a time of war, because war's just, the war isn't necessarily over yet. Alan.
Yeah, and turning up to the Senate with a bunch of your rude soldiery at your back is probably not a strategic error.
No. I mean, it does have that sort of feel of a not quite, because it's not a coup. He's not actually overwhelming the state or anything, but it is a power play, isn't it?
Oh God, yes.
Whereas his father hasn't done that at all. He's just gone, well, naturally, I'm going to be proclaimed the winner. Irene.
I find it quite interesting that he has this very strategic thing of winning the argument, let's say, and then when his father says, "I'll never speak to you again," he's all like, "Oh no, Daddy's never going to speak to me again. What am I going to do?" I mean, is it real or is it?
I think it is. I by and large, people don't necessarily, they usually signpost if they're lying. I mean, he's clearly an idiot if he didn't think this is what was going to... I mean, he's met his father before. I would have thought this was an entirely predictable response. But maybe he didn't think his father was going to go quite that nuclear on it. Were you waving, Mark, or just adjusting your headset? Just adjusting your headset. Yeah. Any other thoughts before we move into Act 2? Eric?
Well, it's interesting because I don't really know where this is going. I mean, it's kind of like, I feel like anything could happen in a way. Like, I mean, like, okay, it's not like he's going to go kill his father, or it's not like the father's going to kill him. So now what?
Well, you never know. I mean, I don't think they are, because I don't think that's where the play's going. But they could. Early modern, you could do anything you like. Francis.
Yeah, when I was reading Antinous, that bit where everybody left, and Antinous was alone with Decius, I was half expecting Antinous to have this sort of malevolent little soliloquy where he would sort of outline his evil intentions, which is frequently what happens in these plays. But I was surprised when he was like, "Oh, Dad's not going to talk to me anymore."
Which,
Yeah,
frankly, in my opinion,
I felt it. I didn't pick up any clues when I was reading it, so I just sort of felt it could have gone either way at that point.
Yeah, though in my opinion, I think he's well out of it. If his father moves away, I mean, frankly, this is a win-win all round. But hey, let's find out. So, yeah, we haven't really. That's it so far in terms of the plot development. We'll see where that goes. There may be some additional plot strands added as we go into Act 2, Scene 1. Enter Gonzalo and Gaspero.
Now, to what you have heard, as no man can better than I give you her character, for I have been both nursed and trained up to her petulant humours, and been glad to bear them. Her brother, my late master, did no less. Strong apprehensions of her beauty hath made her believe she is more than woman. And as there did not want those flatterers about the world's conqueror to make him think, and did persuade him that he was a god, so there be those base flies that will not stick to buzz into her ears she is an angel, and that the food she feeds on is ambrosia.
She should not touch it then. 'Tis poet's fare.
I may take leave to say, she may as well determine of herself to be a goddess, with lesser flattery than he a god, for she does conquer more, although not farther. Everyone looks on her, dies in despair, and would be glad to do it worthily. Actually, to have the next age tell how worthily and what good cause he had to perish so. Her beauty is superlative. She knows it, and knowing it, thinks no man can deserve but ought to perish and to die for her. Many great princes for her love have languished, and given themselves a willing sacrifice, proud to have ended so. And now there is a prince so madded in his own passions that he forgets the royalty he was born to, and deems it happiness to be her slave.
You talk as if you meant to wind me in and make me of the number.
Sir, mistake me not. The service that I owe ye shall plead for me. I tell you what she is, what she expects, and what she will effect, unless you be the miracle of men that come with a purpose to behold and go away yourself.
I thank you. I will do it. But pray resolve me. How is she stored with wit?
Oh, as with beauty, infinite, and more to be admired at than meddled with.
And walks her tongue the same gait with her feet?
Much beyond. Whate'er her heart thinks she utters, and so boldly and so readily, as you would judge it penned and studied.
Enter Erota, Philander, Annophel, Hyparchia, and Mochingo and Attendants.
She comes.
I must leave you then, but my best wishes shall remain with you.
Exit Gaspero.
Still, I must thank you. This is the most passionate, most pitiful prince who, in the cauldron of affections, looks as he had been parboiled.
If I offend with too much loving, it is a fault that I must still commit, to make your mercy shine and warn me.
You are the self-same creature you condemn, or else you durst not follow me with hope that I can pity you, who am so far from granting any comfort in this kind that you and all men else shall perish first. I will live free and single till I find something above a man to equal me. Put all your brave heroes into one, your kings and emperors, and let him come in person of a man, and I should scorn him, must and will scorn him. The god of love himself hath lost his eyes, his bow and torch extinguished, and the poets that made him first a god have lost their fire since I appeared, and from my eyes must steal it. This I dare speak, and let me see the man, now I have spoke it, that doth dare deny, nay, not believe it.
He's mad that does not.
Have not all the nations of the earth heard of me? Most come to see me, and seeing me, returned full of my praises, teaching their chroniclers to make their stories perfect. For where the name, merely the word of fair Erota stands, it is a lasting history to time, begetting admiration in the man and in my own sex envy, which glory's lost when I shall stick my beauty in a cloud and clearly shine through it.
This woman's in the altitudes, and he must be a good astrologer that shall know her zodiac.
For any man to think himself an able purchaser of you, but in the bargain there must be declared infinite bounty. Otherwise, I vow by all that's excellent and gracious in you, I would untenant every hope lodged in me, and yield myself up love's or your own martyr.
So you shall please us.
Oh, you cannot be so heavenly and so absolute in all things, and yet retain such cruel tyranny.
I can, I do, I will.
She is in her moods and her tenses. I'll grammar with you and make trial how I can decline you. By your leave, great lady.
What are you?
A man, a good man that's a wealthy, a proper man, and a proud man too. One that understands himself and knows, unless it be yourself, no woman on the universe deserves him. Nay, lady, I must tell you too withal, I may make doubt of that, unless you paint with better judgment next day than on this, for plain I must be with you. 'Tis a dull fucus.
Knows anyone here what this fellow is?
He's of Venice, madam, a great Mephico, a gracious of the Senate.
Let him keep then among them. What makes he here? Here's state enough where I am. Here's a do. You, tell him if he have aught with us, let him look lower and give it in petition.
Mighty Magnifico, my mistress bids me tell you, if you have aught with her, you must look lower and yield it in petition.
Here's for thee a ducat.
You say well, sir. Take your own course.
I will not grace you, lady, so much as take you by the hand, but when I shall vouchsafe to touch your lip, it shall be through your court a holy day proclaimed for so high favor.
This is some great man's jester. Sirrah, begone. Here is no place to fool in.
Where are the fools you talk of? I do keep two.
No question of it, for in yourself you do maintain 100.
And besides them, I keep a noble train, statists and men of Acleon. My purse is large and deep, beyond the reach of riot to draw dry. Fortune did vie with nature to bestow, when I was born, her bounty equally. 'Tis not amiss you turn your eyes from me, for should you stand and gaze me in the face, you perish would, like Semele by Jove. In Venice, at this instant there do lie no less than 80 ladies in their graves, and in their beds 500 for my love.
You lie more than they. Yet it becomes him bravely. Would I could walk and talk so. I'll endeavor it.
Sir, do you know me?
Yes, you were sister to the late Prince of Candy, aunt to this young one, and I in Venice am a lord, equal to you in fortunes, in shape. I'll say no more, but of you.
There needs no more be said were I a woman. Oh, he does rarely, in shape, I'll say no more, but of you, who could say more, who better? Man is no man, nor woman is, unless they have a pride like one of these. How poor Prince of Cyprus shows to him, how poor another lady unto her. Carriage and state makes us seem demigods. Humility like beasts, worms of the earth.
Enter Antinous and Decius.
Royal lady, I kiss your hand.
Sir, I know you not.
Annophel?
Oh, my noble brother, welcome from the wars.
Dear sister,
It's my father that you come without him. We have news of your success. He has his health, I hope.
Yes, sister, he has his health, but is not well.
Not well. What riddles do you utter?
I'll tell you more in private.
Noble sir, I cannot be unmindful of your merit since I last heard it. You are a hopeful youth, and indeed the soul of candy. I must speak my thoughts.
The Prince of Cyprus' brother, good Decius.
I am his servant.
You are the patron of your country, sir, so your unlimited deeds proclaim you. It is no language of my own, but all men's.
Your enemies must needs acknowledge it. Then do not think it flattery in your friends, for if they had heart, they would not want a tongue.
Is this your brother, Annophel?
Yes, madam.
Your name's Antinous.
I am, lady, that most unfortunate man.
How unfortunate? Are you not the soldier, the captain of those captains that did bring conquest and victory home along with you?
I had some share in it, but was the least of the least worthy.
Oh, sir, in your modesty you'd make a double conquest. I was an ear witness when this young man spoke lesser than he acted, and had the soldier's voice to help him out. But that the law compelled him for his honor to enforce him to make a claim for his reward. I will perceive how he would have stood the man that he does now, buried his worth in silence.
Sir, I hearken not to him, but look on you, and find more in you than he can relate. You shall attend on me.
Madam, your pardon.
Deny it not, sir, for it is more honor than you have gotten in the field. For know you shall, upon Erota's asking, serve Erota.
I may want answers, lady, but never want a will to do you service. I came here to my sister to take leave, having enjoined myself to banishment, for some cause that hereafter you may hear, and wish with me I had not the occasion.
Shall we no occasion to divide us? Dear madam, for my sake use your power, even to the service that he ought to owe, must and does owe to you, his friends and country.
Upon your loyalty to the state and me, I do command you, sir, not depart candy. Am not I your princess?
You are, great lady.
Then show yourself a servant and a subject.
I am your vassal.
You are a coward. I that dare not fight, scorn to be the vassal to any prince in Europe. Great is my heart with pride, which I'll increase when they are gone, with practice on my vassals.
The noble Castellane is come to see you, madam.
There is comfort in those words, Antinous, for here's the place, and persons that have power to reconcile you to his love again.
That were a fortunate meeting.
Enter Cassilanes and Arcanes.
Greatness still waits you, lady.
Good Cassillane, we do maintain our greatness through your valor.
My prayers pull daily blessings on thy head, my unoffending child, my Annophel. Good prince, worthy Gonzalo, art thou here before me? In every action art thou ambitious. My duty, lady, first offered here, in love to thee, my child, though he outstrip me. Thus in the wars he got the start on me, by being forward, but performing less. All the endeavors of my life are lost, and thrown upon that evil of mine own cursed begetting, whom I shame to father. Oh, that the heat thou robst me of had burnt within my entrails, and begot a fever, or some worse sickness, for thou art a disease sharper than any physic gives a name to.
Why do you say so?
Oh, Annophel, there is good cause, my girl. He has played the thief with me, and filched away the richest jewel of my life, my honor, wearing it publicly with that applause as if he justly did inherit it.
Would I had in my infancy been laid within my grave, covered with your blessings, rather than grown up to a man to meet your curses.
Oh, that thou hadst! Then I had been the father of a child dearer than thou wert ever unto me, when hope persuaded me I had begot another self in thee. Out of mine eyes, as far as I have thrown thee from my heart, that I may live and die forgetting thee.
How has he deserved this untamed anger, that when he might have asked for his reward some honor for himself or mass of pelf, he only did request to have erected your statue in the Capitol, with titles engraved upon, the patron of his country?
That's the poison in the gilded cup, the serpent in the flowers that stings my honor and leaves me dead in fame. Gods do a justice and rip his bosom up, that men may see, seeing, believe the subtle practices written within his heart. I am heated, and do forget this presence and myself. Your pardon, lady.
You should not ask, lest you know how to give. For my sake, Cassilanes, cast out of your thoughts all ill conceptions of your worthy son, that questionless hath ignorantly offended, declared in his penitence.
Bid me die, lady. For your sake I'll do it, but that you'll say is nothing for a man that has outlived his honor. But command me in anything save that, and Cassilanes shall ever be your servant. Come, Annophel, my joy in this world, thou shalt live with me, retired in some solitary nook, the comfort of my age. My days are short and ought to be well spent, and I desire no other witness of them but thyself and good Arcanes.
Will obey you, sir.
Noble sir, if you taste any want of worldly means, let not that discontent you. Know me your friend that hath and can supply you.
Sir, I am too much bound to you already, and 'tis not of my cares the least to give you fair satisfaction.
You may imagine I do speak to that end, but trust me, 'tis to make you bolder with me.
Sir, I thank you, and may make trial of you. Meantime, my service.
Brother, be comforted. So long as I continue within my father's love, you cannot long stand out an exile. I must go live with him. I will prove so good an orator in your behalf that you again shall gain him, or I will stir in him another anger and be lost with you.
Better I were neglected, for he's hasty, and through the choler that abounds in him, which for the time divides from him his judgment, he may cast you off, and with you his life, for grief will straight surprise him, and that way must be his death. The sword has tried too often, and all the deadly instruments of war have aimed at his great heart, but ne'er could touch it. Yet not a limb about him wants a scar.
Madam, my duty.
Will you be gone?
I must, lady, for I shall be ready, and you are pleased to command me for your service. Excellent prince, to all my hearty love, and a good farewell.
Thanks, honest Cassilanes.
Come, Annophel.
Shall I not wait upon you, sir?
From hence you shall not stir a foot. Loving Gonzalo, it must be all my study to requite you.
If I may be so fortunate to deserve the name of friend from you, I have enough.
You are so, and you have made yourself so.
I will then preserve it.
And we can infer the exit of Cassilanes and Annophel possibly at this point.
Antinous, you are my servant, are you not?
It hath pleased you so to grace me.
Why are you then dejected? You will say you have lost a father, but you have found a mistress, doubles that loss. Be master of your spirit, you have a cause for it, which is my favor.
And mine.
No man ease me of this fool.
Your fellow.
Antinous, wait upon us.
I shall, madam.
Nay, but lady.
Sir, you are rude, and if you be the master of such means as you do talk of, you should learn good manners.
Oh, lady, you can find a fault in me, but not perceive it in yourself. You shall hear me. I love you for your pride. 'Tis the best virtue in you.
I could hang this fellow now. By whom are you supported, that you dare do this? Have you not example here in a prince transcending you in all things, yet bears himself as does become a man had seen my beauty? Back to your country and your courtesans, where you may be admired for your wealth, which, being consumed, may be a means to gain you the opinion of some wit. Here's nothing to be got but scorn and loss of time.
Which are things I delight in.
Antinous, follow me.
Exit Erota and Antinous.
She is vexed to the soul.
Let her be vexed. 'Tis fit she should be so. Give me thy hand, Gonzalo. Thou art in our favor, for we do love to cherish lofty spirits, such as percuss the earth and bound with an erected countenance to the clouds.
Foot, what thing is this?
I do love fireworks because they mount. An exhalation I profess to adore beyond a fixed star. 'Tis more illustrious, and everything raised out of smoke is so. Their virtue is in action. What do you think of me?
Troth, sir, you are beyond my guess. I know you not.
Do you know yourself?
Yes, sir.
Why, you and I are one. I am proud, and very proud too. That I must tell you. I saw it did become you, cousin Gonzalo. Prithee, let it be so.
Let it be so, good cousin.
I am no great one's fool.
I hope so, for a lion's sake.
Yet I do serve the mighty, monstrous, and magnanimous, invincible Erota.
Oh, good cousin, now I have you. I'll meet you in your coat.
Coat! I have my horseman's coat, I must confess, lined through with velvet and a scarlet outside. If you'll meet me in it, I'll send for it. And, cousin, you shall see me with much comfort, for 'tis both a new one and a right one. It did not come collateral.
Adieu, good cousin. At this present I have some business.
Farewell, excellent cousin.
And end of Act 2. That was it. One long scene for Act 2. I should have broken it down into units to make it a bit more digestible. I didn't quite appreciate that it was that chunky. But we have I say the beginning of a new plot line. It was mentioned at the very top of the play about Erota, and we finally meet her in all her sort of pride. I think is she's definitely very aware of her place in society, and we have Gonzalo doing some business. I'm not quite sure how Gonzalo functioned in that scene. I'm not quite sure what game he's the backs and forth with Erota. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. And that's a curious thing. We return to the A plot, as it were, with the sort of farewell of Daddy, who goes away with the daughter, and there's sort of an attempt at a little reconciliation moment, but it's like, no, I'm not taking the booby prize of a statue. It's just slap in the face. I'm off. So yeah, I think there's actually a lot in that will make more sense later on than at this moment. I think this thing is actually doing something quite clever, and I'm not quite sure what it is yet. Otherwise, there's just a lot of stuff there, and it feels longer, I think, because it's one continuous scene, even though it's really there are sort of units of action in it. So that's more my fault for not sort of breaking it down into units. But yeah, Erota, thoughts on her? I think she's quite an important character. Lois, you exited as one character and immediately came back on again, so the listeners at home might have been a bit confused at that moment. I didn't flag that up. But yes, you were suddenly Erota, and yeah.
Well, particularly since in the first scene I was describing both Erota and Gonzalo anyway. And, yeah.
Oh, the joys of the doubling.
Yes. Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, she seems as insufferable in her way as the men are in their way. I mean, all these people that have a well-justified high opinion of themselves. I mean, it is supposed to be well-justified, but it's still pretty insufferable.
Yeah, it's one thing to have a high opinion of yourself. It's another thing to keep mentioning it to other people. I'm not sure that's a very healthy way of. So I'm sure we all here have a series of skill sets that are very accomplished in our own various ways. But if we just wandered around, the first thing we said to anyone is, "Hi, I'm amazing at bridge." I'm amazing at this. It's just no, that's clearly. There's a problem there. Lynn.
I think the right actors could make this scene really funny because they're both so full of themselves. Gonzalo says something about, yes, like all the women are in love with me. There's like, I don't know, 60 women who died from love for me or whatever. I mean, he's pretty ridiculous, and I think that Erota could be pretty ridiculous too. I'm sure she's very pretty. But yeah, so what?
She's supposed to be witty as well. There's a sort of weird Mean Girls vibe to the whole thing.
Totally the Mean Girl. Yeah. So I think that I think the point of this scene is actually for it to be funny. And Mochingo's supposed to be funny, and I find him I find his humor sort of inaccessible. I'm not really sure what he's trying to do. And yeah, I wasn't amused by him, but I was kind of amused by the people who really are so into themselves.
And there's a couple of points that Rachel's made in the chat, actually. One is about, are bits of this funny? The question of Cassilanes, when he does his big speech about how great he is at the beginning, and then says, but to be brief, is that to highlight how pompous and over the top he is? What's that? Is that a deliberate effect? And there are lots of bits in here where I'm going, that it feels like some of this is supposed to be funny. It's not that it's just that that is the effect they're actually aiming for. And the other problem is actually the complete absence of asides marking, and it's actually quite blurry sometimes what is an aside and what is actually spoken to the room. And that makes it quite difficult to decipher this scene, because I think there's actually a lot of it going on. And it's not just, I think, Gonzalo as well. I think there's more of it going on around the scene, and that changes what the scene is doing quite dramatically as well. So we've got options there that need unpicking. I'll go to Irene, then Eric.
In the defense of Erotas or Erotas, I would say, I could pronounce it. It does. The name does come from Eros, who is a god of love. So,
yeah, then erotic, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, this is her, she's a goddess, but she's of love. That's what she is.
Yeah, and the early modern period had a very low opinion of such figures as well, because they're dangerous and disruptive. Eric, and then Mark.
What I find interesting is that there are bits that I feel like there's physical business, but they're not marked in the script. So it's either, like, for example, when Erota goes, sir, please take your leave, or whatever the line was, where she's basically trying to shoo off Gonzalo. And it feels like maybe he's trying to take her hand, or, something. That is that really, really bothers her. It might not even be something aggressive, but just sort of something that is enough for her to be triggered by his presence and stuff. Or unless you just play with words, but I mean, obviously it's a play, therefore you have to do something.
The play isn't giving us much of additional detail beyond the words, there is a distinct lack of marking here as to things that are supposed to be going on, which doesn't make this actually very easy to decipher. So yeah, physical business as well as things like asides. Who are you talking to and where are you standing? These are not unimportant details. Mark.
Yeah, I was gonna say, following up on Irene, also in defense of Erota, pretty much all of her I'm too good for all of you is in direct response to someone being like, marry me, and she seems to get that a lot. So having just being able to be like, no, everyone wants me, none of you are good enough for me. It makes sense from that perspective, I think.
Yes, and we do have two potential suitors as sort of in this scene, and directions that might go. Very briefly, Eric, and then we'll move into Act 3.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say again, which is irrelevant. Just that this play is not hanging around. We're already in Act 2, like Act 3. Like we're about to start Act 3, Scene 1, and it's just like we've covered quite a bit. I don't know if you'd call it plot, but I mean, a lot has happened. Definitely.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's yeah, in a sense, not a lot has actually happened, but and so in a sense, it's taking its time, but it's not a long play. I have also been pushing the pace, and we haven't been stopping and starting as much as we would with a play with fewer scenes in it. So maybe we've got further into it than we would have done if I hadn't done that. But we do have a lot of words to get through today, so we're going to crack on with Act 3, Scene 1. Enter Gonzalo and Fernando.
Candy, I say, is lost already.
Yes, if to be conqueror be to be lost.
You have it. One day's conquest hath undone them, and sold them to their vassalage. For what have I else toiled my brains, profusely emptied my moneys, but to take them slaves to Venice, that so in case the sword did lose his edge, then art might sharpen hers.
Gonzalo, how?
Ferdinand, thus. You see how through this land, both of the best and basest, I am honored. I only gave the state of Venice notice where, when, and how to land, or you had found a better entitlement. I was he encouraged young Antinous to affront the devil his father, for the devil, I think, dares not to do more in battle.
But why did ye? I find no such great policy in that.
Indeed, Fernando, thou canst fight, not plot. Had they continued one, they two alone were of sufficient courage and performance to beat an army.
No, now, by all my hopes, I rather shall admire than envy virtue.
Why then, by all your hopes, you'll rather have your brains knocked out than learn how to be wise, you statesman. Well, sir, I did more than this. When Cassilanes craved from the common treasure pay his soldiers, I struck home and lent him 100,000 ducats.
Marry, sir, the policy was little, the loves less, and honesty least of all.
How say ye by that? Go fight, I say go fight. I'll talk no more with you. You are insensible.
Well, I shall observe ye.
Why, look at you, sir. By this means have I got the greatest part of Cassilanes' estate into my hands, which he can ne'er redeem, but must force sink. Do you conceive me now?
So, but why have you importuned the Senate for me to sojourn with them?
There's the quintessence, the soul, the grand elixir of my wit. For he, according to his noble nature, will not be known to want, though he do want, and will be bankrupted so much the sooner, and made the subject of our scorn and laughter.
Here's a perfect plotted stratagem.
Why, could you imagine that I did not hate in heart my country's enemies? Yes, yes, Fernando, and I will be the man that shall undo them.
Ye are in a ready way.
I was never out on it.
Enter Gaspero.
Peace, here comes a wise coxcomb to a tame coward. Now, worthy Gaspero, what, you come, I know, to be my Lord Fernando's conductor to old Cassilanes?
To wait upon him.
And my lords, the senators sent you?
My noble lord, they did.
My Lord Fernando, this gentleman, as humble as you see him, is even this kingdom's treasure. In a word, 'tis his chief glory that he is not wiser than honest, and no more honest than approved in truth and faith.
My lord.
You may be bold to trust him with your bosom. He'll not deceive if you rely on him once.
Your name is Gaspero?
Your servant.
Go commend me, right honest Gaspero. Commend me heartily to noble Cassilanes. Tell him my love is vowed to him.
I shall.
I know you will.
And exit Gaspero.
My lord, I cannot long be absent from you.
Sir, you are now my guide.
Exit Fernando, leaving Gonzalo to twiddle moustache.
Thus my designs run uncontrolled, yet Venice, though I be intelligencer to thee, in my brain are the large projects. For if proud Erota bend to my lure, I will be Candy's king, and Duke of Venice too. Venice too, oh, 'twas prettily shoved in. Why not? Erota may in her love seal all sure. If she swallow the bait, I am lord of both. If not, yet Candy, despite all her power, shall be ruined.
Exit Gonzalo, swish of cape, moo ha 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 ha, boo hiss. Yes, Gonzalo, at the beginning of Act 3, reveals. Aha, yes, you thought I was just some harmless lord wandering around from Venice, the place you just defeated. Of course I'm fine about the war. I'm not bitter. And yeah, suddenly we get a little bit of, counterplot to plot. And it sort of gives us some clues about what Gonzalo was doing in the previous scene. And it's interesting that it's placed here as well, that it's only sort of Gonzalo's sort of maneuverings in the background. Not that he's really done anything in the background, but just his presence is just there, and it gives you something. Knowing that as an actor before you go into the play, it gives you something to do for those first two acts. Lois.
Yeah, it's interesting that we now see that I think in the previous scene he was employing reverse psychology. I mean, being really rude to Erota, presumably with the idea that eventually she's going to fall in love with him because he's read a lot of plays in which this happens.
I believe the technical term is negging. So he's having a go. And Ferdinand, or Fernando rather, who seemed, an upright, captured gent. Turns out he's very good at fighting.
Yeah.
He's good at that.
Yeah.
Give him simple commands, he'll be fine. I did enjoy that little exchange. Other thoughts? Fun little scene. Got to the point, got out again. Was I don't not admire that. Any other thoughts before we go into the final chunky scene of the session? We'll see how far we get then. Act 3, Scene 2. Enter Cassilanes, Arcanes, and Annophel.
Urge me no farther, Annophel.
My lord?
Thy father's poverty has made thee happy, for though 'tis true this solitary life suits not with youth and beauty, my child, yet 'tis the sweetest guardian to protect chaste names from court aspersions. There a lady tender and delicate in years and graces that dotes upon the charms of ease and pleasure is shipwrecked on the shore, for 'tis much safer to trust the ocean in a leaking ship than follow greatness and the wanton rights of luxury and sloth.
My wishes, sir, never sought a higher flight than truly to find occasion wherein I might witness my duty and obedience.
'Tis well said. Canst thou forbear to laugh, Arcanes?
Why, sir?
To look upon my beggary, to look upon my patience in my beggary. Tell me, does it show handsome, bravely? Handsome? Thou wilt flatter me and swear that I am miserable.
Nothing more glorifies the noble and the valiant than to despise contempt. If you continue but to enjoy yourself, you in yourself enjoy all store besides.
An excellent change. I, that some 7 apprenticeships commanded, 100 ministers that waited on my nod, and sometimes 20,000 soldiers, am now retired, attended in my age by one poor maid, followed by one old man.
Sir, you are lowering your own repute than you have reason for.
The Roman captains, I mean the best, such as with their bloods purchased their country's peace, the empire's glory, were glad at last to get them to some farms, off from the clamors of the ingrateful great ones and the unsteady multitude, to live as I do now, and 'twas their blessing too. Let it be ours, Arcanes.
I cannot but applaud your scorn of injuries.
Of injuries? Arcanes, Annophel, lend both your hands. So, what say ye now?
Why now, my lord?
I swear by all my past prosperities, thus standing between you two, I think myself as great, as mighty, as if in the Capitol I stood amidst the senators, with all the Cretan subjects prostrate at my feet.
Sir, you are here more safe.
And more beloved, my look ye, sirs. I can forget the weakness of the traduced soldiers, the neglect of the fair-spoken senate, the impiety of him, the villain, whom to my dishonor the world miscalls my son.
Sir.
What? By the...
Sorry. Sir, remember that you promised on occasion should move your patience. No,
just chide me friendly. Shall not have the honor to be thought upon amongst us.
Enter a servant.
Now, the news?
The secretary, with the Venetian prisoner, sir, desire admittance to your lordship.
How? To me? What mystery is this? Arcanes, can they, thinkst thou, mean any good?
My lord, they dare not intend aught else but good.
'Tis true, they dare not. Arcanes, welcome them.
Exit Arcanes.
Come hither, Annophel. Stand close to me. We'll change our affability into a form of state, and they shall know our heart is still our own.
Enter Arcanes, Fernando, and Gaspero.
My lord.
Arcanes, I know them both. Fernando, as you are a man of greatness, I should undervalue the right my sword hath fought for to observe low fawning compliments. But as you are a captive and a stranger, I can love you. I must be kind. You are welcome.
'Tis all of my ambition.
And for proof how much he truly honors your heroic virtues, the Senate on his importunity commend him to your lordship's guard.
For what?
During the time of his abode in Kandy, to be your household guest.
Wherein, my lord, you shall more make me debitor to your nobleness than if you had returned me without ransom.
Are you in earnest, sir?
My suit to the Senate shall best resolve you that.
Come hither, secretary. Look that this be no trick now put upon me, for if it be, sirrah...
As I have truth, my lord, it only is a favor granted upon Fernando's motion from himself. Your lordship must conceive I'd not partake aught but what should concern your honor, who have been the prop, our country's shield and safety, but the renowned Cassilanes.
Applause. Is Gaspero nothing? Why, young lord, would you so much be sequestered from those that are the blazing comets of the time to live a solitary life with me, a man forsaken? All my hospitality is now contracted to a few, these two, the tempest-wearied soldier and this virgin. We cannot feast your eyes with masks and revels, or courtly antics. The sad sports we riot in are tales of foughten fields of martial scars and things done long ago, where men of courage were held the best, not those well-spoken youths who only carried conquests in their tongues. Now, stories of this nature unseasonable to entertain a great duke's son with.
Herein shall my captivity be made my happiness, since what I lose in freedom, I regain with interest by conversing with a soldier, so matchless for experience as great Cassilanes. Pray, sir, admit me.
If you come to mock me, I shall be angry.
By the love I bear to goodness, my intents are honorable.
Then, in a word, my lord, your visitations shall find all due respects. But I am now grown old and have forgot to be an host. Come when you please, you are welcome.
Sir, I thank you.
Good sir, be not too urgent, for my father will soon be moved, yet in a noble way of courtesy. He is so easily conquered.
Lady, your words are like your beauty, powerful. I shall not strive more how to do him service than how to be your servant.
She's my daughter, and does command this house.
So I conceive her.
Do you hear?
My honored lord?
Commend me to them. Tell them I thank them.
Whom, my lord?
The Senate. Why, how come you so dull? Ugh, they are gracious and infinitely grateful. Thou art eloquent, speak modestly in mentioning my services, and if aught fall out in the by, that must of mere necessity touch any act of my deserving praises, blush when you talk on it. Will make them blush to hear on't.
Why, my lord?
Nay, you are too wise now. Good, observe me. Do not rail against the hopeful spring all that builds up monuments in brass, rears trophies with mottos and inscriptions, quaint devices of poetry and fiction. Let's be quiet.
You must not cross him.
Not for Candy's wealth.
You shall forever make me yours.
What pity to double your captivity.
Who's there? Who's here? Decius?
And to Decius.
Decius. Who name's Decius?
My duty to your lordship, I'm bold, presuming on your noble and known goodness, to
What?
present you with this.
Letter?
Yes, my honored lord.
From whom?
Please you peruse the inside, and you shall find a name subscribed in such humility, as such obedience, that you yourself will judge it tyranny not to receive it favorably.
Heyday. Good words, my masters. This is court infection, and none but cowards ply them. Tell me, Decius, without more circumstance, who is the sender?
Your most grieved son, Antinous.
On my life, a challenge. Speak as thou art worthy. Speak. I'll answer it.
Honored sir,
No, honored sirs. Fool your young idol with such pompous attributes. Say briefly, what contains it?
'tis a lowly petition for your favor.
Rash young man, but that thou art under my own roof, and knowest I dare not any way infringe the laws of hospitality, thou shouldst repent thy bold and rude intrusion. But presume not again to show thy letter for thy life. Decius, not for thy life.
Nay then, my lord, I can withhold no longer. You are too rough, and wrestle against nature with a violence more than becomes a father. Wherein would ye come nearer to the likeness of God than in your being entreated? Let not thirst of honor make you quite forget you are a man, and that makes what makes perfect manhood's comforts a father.
If a memory remain of my departed mother, if the purity of her unblemished faith deserves to live in your remembrance, let me yet by these awake your love to my uncomforted brother.
I am a stranger, but so much I tender your son's desertful virtues, that I vow his sword never conquered me so absolutely, as shall your courtesy, if you vouchsafe at all instances to new received him in your wanton favour.
Sir, you cannot require more low submission.
Am I not grown vile yet in your eyes? Then by the name of father, let me once more sue for him, who is the only now remaining branch, with me, of that most ancient root, whose body you are, dear sir.
'Tis well. An host of furies could not have baited me more torturingly, more rudely, or more most unnaturally. Decius, I say, let me no more hear from him. For this time go thou hence, and know from me, thou art beholding to me, that I have not killed thee already. Look to it next, look to it. Arcanes 5, fie Annophel.
Exit Cassilanes.
He's gone, chafed beyond sufferance. We must follow him.
Lady, this letter is to you.
Come with me, and we must speak in private. Please you, sir, to see what entertainment our sad house can yield.
Exit Annophel.
I shall attend you, lady.
How do you like to sojourn here, my lord?
More than to feast with all the princes of the earth besides. Gonzalo told me that thou wert honest.
Yes, sir, and you shall find it.
Shall I?
All my follies be else recorded to my shame.
Enough. Mine heart is here for ever lodged.
The lady.
The place admits no time to utter all. But Gaspero, if thou wilt prove my friend, I'll say thou art.
Your servant, I conceive you. We'll choose some fitter leisure.
Never man was in a moment or more blessed or more wretched.
Exuent. Yes. So, or not just is Cassilane's so upset with his son. You know, it's not just unnatural. It's not most. It's more most unnaturally. I mean, it's like sentence logic falling apart in interesting ways. Okay, so Fernando is keen on Annophel. So there's another little. Otherwise, not a lot actually happened in that scene. There was a little bit of Gonzalo sort of and a setup for things. And there's this petitioning that's going on in the first half of the scene, but then the second half of the scene very much returns to, yeah, he sent a letter. It's just, I don't want to see it, and all the stuff about him just going, sir, remember that you promised no occasion should move your patience. It's that thing when this guy with anger management issues, he's told everyone to remind him not to get cross. It's like, no, it's fine. Little book of calm. So again, there's really interesting things going on here. But actually, in terms of plot points, then they're not really moving desperately fast. They're sort of sauntering in while the main sort of action's still going on in the background. Thoughts? I have lots of thoughts about this, but I don't want to lead, as it were, too much. As ever, I'm thinking about, what you do to produce this, and actually this is doing interesting things. Who anyone want to leap in on where we've just been? Lois.
Yeah, I mean, I assume this is Gonzalo's fiendish plot to make Venice run Cyprus, Crete again, and presumably having what's his name? Fernando in Cassilanes' house is going to help this, though at the moment I can't see how. I mean, his main idea seemed, as he explained, was to keep father and son as enemies so that the forces of Crete would be helpless against the Venetians. And I don't know if this is going to be foiled by Fernando's falling in love with Annophel, in which case there'll be an interesting clash of temperaments here. I don't know. I assume this is where it's going.
Yeah, it does look like that might be a spanner in the works, as it were. They've sent him in as an undercover spy to help maneuver his cunning maneuverings that he has cunningly done, and that might go somewhere. I mean, I think it's probably going to go that way, just simply because this kind of play that signposts where it's going most. It's designed to signpost where it's going a lot of the time. Apart from the fact that Gonzalo wasn't signposted explicitly very early in the play, which I might change in a production. I might, that little scene he has with Fernando could go in so much earlier. It could go in before Act 2. And I'm curious about that effect, about the purpose of that. We've had this with Thomas Middleton sometimes, where they sort of doesn't explain what's going on until after it's happened. And so I'm wondering about whether that's deliberate and what happens if you move some things around. Any other thoughts about Act 3, Scene 2, before we go into final thoughts for this session? I should have stopped and started more. We've got plenty of time in lieu, and sometimes powering through doesn't help. Okay, I'm throwing. First of all, I think this play is doing something that we're not really used to. It's dealing with this central relationship, these two people, this political conflict that we're not necessarily very familiar with. And it's doing something quite interesting, but you kind of need to be invested in the people, and the play isn't really invested in the people in the same way as perhaps we feel. It's doing something very interesting. You just have to buy into it and be interested in it, and I don't think there's anything we can do to change that reception of the text. I think in terms of what it seems to be trying to do, I think it's doing it quite well. I think it's demonstrating this relationship between father and son. It's developing the political world and the directions of flow that the narrative's going in. It's doing that fine. So the real question is, beyond some trimming and just presenting it and seeing how it goes, there's not a lot I think you can do with this, because there's nothing dramaturgically wrong with it. Apart from sometimes some of the scenes are a bit excessive. You know, Cassilanes goes on a bit too much. Act 3, there were a few bits in those scenes where I'm going, no, we don't need all of this. We just need some back and forth. But it's not like we can go back to first principles and sort of hack it about, unless anyone's got an idea. Do contradict me. But that's my feeling, is you just have to buy into it and go with it. And there's nothing we can do to stop the audience not going with it if they're not going with it. And we've just got to find the right audience who will go with it. Because otherwise, I don't see an angle for this. I think it's just you give it to some actors and they do it, and it's fine. But yeah, I'll go around the room for final thoughts, reactions to that. And yeah, as ever, it's not about whether you like the play, it's what we do with it and how we do it that we're interested in. I'll go to Lois first. Any final thoughts?
Well, we won't really know until the end whether anybody else is playing a double game. I mean, so far it's they're just Gonzalo, who is actually quite interesting, I think. But I don't know, in the scene with Fernando, he appeared to be falling into the same trap as everybody else of telling everybody how wonderful he was. And he may be intended to be shown up as not as anything like as smart as he thinks. I don't know. But I mean, it struck me that the only way to make all these people with this high sense of their own value interesting would be to suggest some kind of secret doubt about the subject, you know, that some of them are actually quite insecure or that they're much nicer than they seem to be. And it might be possible, if we see how it ends, for some of them to be played that way.
Yeah. I think Cassilanes is massively insecure, otherwise the plot wouldn't happen. I mean, that's sort of the nature of his character. And again, this question of tone, how much humor are we supposed to get? Are we supposed to be laughing at them a lot of the time? I kind of feel that some of this is inherently funny. And this is where we'll get into a question at the end when we talk about genre as well. About where you land with this, because actually that scene we just did, even though it feels like it's we've been here before, there's a lot of repetition, but actually I think Cassilanes' blood pressure routine is actually quite funny. I think there's something quite amusing about that, but then it could also be terribly moving. You know, this family is tearing itself apart. I'm not sure the text is doing that, but maybe it would in performance. Mark, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, it can be funny. It could also be potentially a little scary. You know, he's really just like going off the deep end and then bringing himself back, and that, you know. But yeah, and I think to your point, Rob, about, you know, giving it some actors and having them do it. I think the acting would be a big part of it. Is, you know, I think the actors, you know, doing their best to make these compelling, interesting characters, you know, actually having some time to rehearse and all that. I think that would go a long way toward making this work so far.
And it has the advantage of being quite short, which means that once you make necessary trims just to take some of the edge off, it's not going to be like you're sitting there for 3 hours listening to some people being terribly noble. You're potentially there for, you know, 100 minutes plus, listening to some people being quite interesting, potentially. Francis, how are your daddy issues going?
Yeah, I find the plot really interesting, but as a lot of people have said in the comments, I'm not particularly invested in the characters. Antinous and Cassilanes, who are sort of the main characters, seem a bit one-dimensional to me. And the only really sympathetic character seems to be Annophel. And I'm pretty sure I know where the plot is going, I think. So in that sense, I'm sorry I'm not here tomorrow.
Yeah. It's also, I mean, even though I was actually saying, you know, it's quite difficult to double, there's quite a lot of characters, actually the core company is relatively tight. You know, there's some people have a lot to say, and there are a lot of peripheral characters, and I'm now starting to think for tomorrow about, can we simplify the Senate? Can we simplify the soldiery? Can we make this a tighter unit of play as well? Because also one of the drag factors for doing a play that we're not sure of is you don't want to necessarily have lots of actors involved in it. You want to keep it tighter. Alan, any final thoughts?
I'm at the moment I'm just lost. I'm finding it quite difficult to keep in my head who's who. Then I think it's probably one of these ones that if you saw it on stage, the groupings, the costumings, and so on would make more sense of it. But just coming as a stream of words, I'm finding it's difficult to follow, and I suspect I'm not the only one.
Well, I think one of the problems is just the perversity of the way the casting comes out with a random mix. Is the father is played by someone who's younger than their son, and all of those all of the characters are sort of coming out from sort of slightly odd directions. Whereas if you see it on stage, father, son, daughter, random princess, random Venetian. It's actually very it's not complicated at all in terms of the number of characters who actually matter. It's like, I don't know who Arcanes is, and I don't think it matters if we know who he is. I mean, we do a bit, but he's not a driver to the plot, so we only really need to know Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, and then we're sort of fine with it. Eric, any final thoughts?
Well, I was a bit lost at first, but then I'm thinking that, well, if you sort of, because it is a fashion, well, has been, probably is still fashionable, I don't know, to do gender swapped versions of things. It might become clearer if you cross cast it so that you have, because obviously it would lose the sort of, I don't know, it becomes different if it's a mother and a daughter, and like the mother being jealous of the daughter for her honor, fame, blah blah blah. But I don't know. Just it might make things clearer, which would just for a bit. I mean, not for the final production. I don't know.
I think the
probably
ages matter.
How would gender affect this plot? Just because there's a lot of like stuff going on about characters wanting things from other characters and not really telling the audience what they want, which is what we're used to. We're used to seeing that soliloquy thing, like, yes, I will do this and do this, and then that will work out perfectly, because that's exactly how plots don't work. But yeah.
It is quite heavily gendered, in the sense we've got the terribly masculine men who do war things, and then we've got the female characters who are the courtly beauty or dutiful daughter. So it is playing with those elements as well, and I'm not really playing with it; they're just sort of demonstrating it. So there's a question also what to do with that as well. That there might be scope. Lynn, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm sort of, I think, with the general opinion of the room, is like the plotting is really kind of clever. That I did not suspect that the son had been manipulated into making that request for his father by someone who knew them both better than they know themselves, and knew that it was gonna cause a rift. That was clever. So yeah, like you say, dramaturgically, there's nothing wrong with it. But as Francis said, I'm having a hard time caring about the characters. I tend to think it's because, as Lois observed earlier, the verse isn't very good. So it's just not very. I don't know. It's not very eloquent. It's not easy to follow. So it's like on the level of the language, it's kind of not grabbing me, and I think therefore the characters are not grabbing me. But who knows? You have real live charismatic actors occupying those roles that might make a huge difference.
I was sort of fine with the verse. I mean, it's not technically very good at all, but it's sort of, I apart from that very first exchange between father and son, where I was going, they're talking very weird. It sort of settled down to sort of something that's probably more like prose, but is sort of structured in a verse sort of way. But it does ebb and flow. Sometimes it's quite metrically okay. But that's possibly because there's several hands in it as well. That's the other thing. Anyone know which bits were written by who? It doesn't feel diffuse at all, actually. It feels quite unified in that sense, and that's quite interesting. There's a reason why we're not really very confident on attribution of who's written what there, and that's why also we don't care. Connor, any final thoughts?
Yeah, like you were saying, I think it's a play that needs to be put on its feet to really get a sense of it and see if it can come to life. Because, it's not badly written or anything like that. It's just, yeah, I think we just need to see it. And as we're saying about the age of these characters, how we're reading it, we're not, at those ages. So it'd be useful to see that represented on stage. I think it's quite an interesting play for a variety of reasons. So yeah, I think it needs to be brought alive, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's that awkward thing of going, the play's okay.
The play's okay. It's functioning.
The play's okay. It's fine. And that makes it actually quite hard for me to go, right, how do we make it better? What do we do with it? Because it's sort of like, there's nothing overt that it's not like we have a sudden scene where everything's horribly wrong and we go, no, we can't have this and we've got to find it. And it's in a sense, it's easier to figure out a route through a disaster than with a perfectly competent play. And yeah.
Like the challenge, how do we make it interesting and bring it to life? That's what we got.
How do we make people care? Or do we do the kind of theatrical event where caring doesn't matter so much? But I don't think this is a post-dramatic text. Irene, any final thoughts?
Well, I think it's actually quite interesting, and I think the whole play between the father and the son and the jealousy, and it's a sort of classic psychological situation with jealousy between father and son, and the young overtaking the old. I think it's interesting. I mean, I'm not too about the father talking and talking and talking, because it shows his character and that's who he is. And I actually don't like the positioning of the reveal, which was where Gonzalo said reveals that he's had a hand in all of this and that he has some kind of plot. And then suddenly it kind of you say, well, when I said at the beginning, the son, why is the son done all of this and blah blah blah, and then suddenly says, oh no, daddy doesn't want to talk to me anymore, I'm so sad. And is that believable? But it is, when you see that it's all been manipulated and he's been, this guy's worked on all their little foibles to make them do things that they're going to regret later. So I think I don't know. I'm glad. I want to see what happens next. I suspect I know as well, but
yeah. I mean, I've definitely enjoyed today. I'm just it is a slightly different exercise in terms of thinking about what to do with it, because it's harder to run with it at this stage. But I keep hunting. I will come up with something by the end of the next session. I'm sure I will. Rachel, any final thoughts?
Yeah, when Gonzalo made his reveal of his plotting, you mentioned that it would give the actor information for how to act, be an intelligencer, a spy beforehand. I also think it might be worth making Gonzalo's national, geographical, geopolitical difference, visible to the audience earlier on. Make him in dress and manners and speech very clearly a Venetian and very different from the Cretans. And make the Cretans perhaps somewhat, hostile, think of him as, threatening and gross in various kinds of ways to sort of heighten the tension between the geopolitical communities, so that becomes clearer to the audience earlier on, even though Gonzalo doesn't reveal his actual plotting till, I think it's a good point. I agree with Irene. I like the timing of that. But there's ways of making him creepy and unwelcome on Crete to sort of play that up and sort of play. I think that might add some sort of audience interest to the drama.
Yes, clear costuming, and he's described as a Magnifico. That immediately conjures images for the way that he would appear. And yeah, I think that's right. Both he and his Fernando both have that outsider status in different ways within the conflict. Yeah, I think that's an excellent
So when he flirts with Erota, it's particularly disgusting, and she's particularly disgusted by him.
Right. Any other thoughts before we close this session, Eric?
Well, it's interesting how it's kind of, well, okay, aside from the fact that, the title is, we don't really get what the immediacy of the relevance of the title yet, I think. But I find it interesting that Cassilanes has more stage time than Antinous, which makes me think that either well, I mean, like, he actually says a lot more, and he's actually doing a lot more business, which might mean that he was written for a more experienced actor, or just like someone who's actually older on stage, not a boys' company that like we're used to. I don't know, maybe.
Lois.
Yeah, I feel that the opening scene, all that stuff that I was saying earlier as Gaspero, is probably extremely relevant to how things are going on. And I wish I'd paid more attention to what I was saying, because it really does explain, it sets up Gonzalo as a mysterious figure in many ways, and it prepares you in a way for discovering something funny about him. And also, I think Rachel's right that part of the effect of the play is that all these personal things, including, I suppose, who's going to woo Erota and how she feels about all these men, it's all sort of subordinate to this Venice versus Crete situation, which does need to be built up more. One of the other things that was stated in the opening scene is that law about gratitude, and how if you show ingratitude to somebody, they can actually put you to death, which is a really daft idea. But anyway, that's presumably going to come up and possibly be the solution to this situation.
Yeah, and that opening scene, I did mock it about it being, hi, let's do some exposition. It's all really important stuff, and I thought it did actually. In the moment, I was taking most of it in. It wasn't. I mean, the weight of it may only become apparent later on, but it does deliver information quite efficiently. I mean, here's the question: for perhaps the fundamental problem for the play for a modern English-speaking audience is the title, "The Laws of Candy," fundamentally misleading, because everybody's going to be wanting to go to the candy shop, and as opposed to, do we tweak the title? I don't think tweak throughout the play. I think you can keep it in, but in terms of selling the play, are we fundamentally mis-selling what we're selling? Mark.
Or do you have to retheme it to be Candyland style?
Oh God! I mean, you could, and it would look fabulous and be wrong on so many levels.
But designers would have so much fun.
Yes, they would, and they would spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't. I just don't feel it would elucidate the. What would that make Venice, the land of the salt, or what's the antithesis of candy?
Liver? I don't know.
Healthy food, broccoli.
The land of broccoli.
Kale.
There were giant broccoli hats, and yeah. I feel we
broccoli, no.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna walk away from this thought now, but it is sort of a weird. It's more an advertising problem. How do you sell a show called The Laws of Candy? Well, just sort of shift it to Candia. Anyway, thanks to all the wonderful readers for reading. You too can join us online. There are sign-up sessions, sign-up forms available on our website, beyondshakespeare.org. Anyone can sign up and join us. It's entirely open access to anyone who wants to join us on Zoom and then read plays and have opinions. You too can join us if you so wish. But for now, all that remains is thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, and goodbye. I will be Candy's king.